Well, good morning, everybody. Part two. I don't know what just happened. I went to add our friend, and the whole thing just sort of blinked and blipped out and freaked out. So, we're going to do Success Life Live Fun Friend Friday here in just a minute. I'm going to give everybody a chance to reload, reset, re-jump in, whatever it is. I'm not sure what actually happened there. Thank you, Elizabeth, for stepping back in. And I will let Tamara know to sign back in. I hate when technology fights you and it's not your fault. Give me just a minute. There we go. So anyhow, as I was saying, Tamara Hunter is our guest for today's Fun Friend Friday. She is a cancer survivor and a cancer support specialist. She is a nonprofit executive. She works with Cancer Buddies for Life. The 365 Project. And the reason I wanted her to be a part of this Success Life Live and Fun Friend Friday, and there we go, I'm going to try and add you. Now, the reason I wanted her to be so often talk about, good morning, I have no idea what happened to me.
It's technology. We call it the Wild Wild West.
The Wild Wild West, yeah. I think Mark Zuckerberg got jealous this morning and said, let's just shut Eric down. So he shut me down, but I fought back. As I was telling people, the reason I wanted to invite you to be a part of this Fun Friend Friday is because aside from being a service hero yourself, you recognize service heroes and you seek out people who are in service and you acknowledge them. And I love that because often those people who are in service to others or become servant leaders try and deflect the attention away from them. They always try and deflect it to their cause, to their event, to the people that they're serving. And the truth is, we all need to have our cups filled sometimes, and you're a great cup filler.
Thank you. Thank you. It's actually my joy, and there's really a reason behind it. And it's real simple, is that a couple things. First of all, I have a nonprofit that services and helps those people that are affected by cancer, both the patient and those people that love and support them. And it's not always an easy day when you're dealing with that subject. And so oftentimes it's so much easier to get through things when you see the good in life and you can see that there are people that are out there making a difference. I started having some of my buddies that are stage 4s. A couple of them start saying, I'm just done. Look at what's happening in the news and everything like that. And I'm like, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. I believe that there is so much more good happening out there. It's just that people are not out there singing it from the rooftops. And so I come from the school of thought that if there needs to be a song sung from the top of the roof, go out there and do it, because, someone's got to lead that charge. And so one of them in particular, one of my buddies, she was telling me goodbye basically. And I'm like, I listened. And then I said, you know what? I need some help with something. And immediately was, oh, what do you need? Well, that let me know, no, she wasn't really done. She just was like buying in. I'm going to get rid of this light over here. She was kind of buying into some of the stories out there. And I'm like, okay, well then we need to do something about this. And so a lot of those people that serve in our community are actually those being served.
I love that idea. Good morning, everybody. I know we just dove straight into the lesson. Tamara Hunter is here, and we're talking about cancer and cancer support and cancer surviving. All things are related to the big C word, so to speak. But I love that idea that as soon as that person had something besides cancer as their purpose, as their mission, as their goal, they re-engaged. And I think that's true of everybody. We want to feel as if we have a purpose. And sometimes when cancer is discussed, it becomes our entire story. And nobody lets us get out of it because it becomes so much of a 365, 7-day-a-week kind of thing that when you offered her oh, by the way, I need your help with something, she was like, oh, finally a chance to begin to exit this cancer story and move into a different one.
Right. Right. And one particular um, one of my buddies, it was pretty significant how that actually changed her life. And the doctors saw it, her nurses saw it. She became our senior ambassador. And in the beginning, it was, okay, can you be our ambassador? You know, I need an ambassador here. And then she had another crisis of faith, and it was like, okay, we need a senior ambassador. Okay. And she's like, okay, I'm right there. And oh my, she really became a senior ambassador. And yet she was a complete shut-in. She wasn't even allowed to go outside because of her immunity issues. She was in tremendous pain. There's no doubt about that. However, she never complained about it. She always made me, she was always like more concerned about me than herself. And in that, when she would go to the doctors started asking, what is it that you're doing? There's no physical way that you should be still here with us. And they were fascinated by it. And she would proudly and boldly say, it's because I am the senior ambassador for Chemo Buddies for Life, and I'm a service hero. I need to be here, and I want to be here. And she stayed probably about a whole year longer than anybody thought she could.
Well, and it was a year of contribution instead of complaining.
Yeah. In fact, not only contribution, she helped us to go global. This woman, she just passed not long ago, and she's still, we all feel her. There, people are calling them miracles. Oh no, she's just having some fun. She's no longer a shut-in. She's completely out there doing her deal. Because right now, every single day, there are absolute doors opening, people calling us, things happening, and we know it's Sharon. There's no doubt in any of our minds. It's like we hear her giggling, we hear her doing her deal, you know, and it's so, because what happened, Eric, is that I'm involved in the Next Impactor, and we had the top 50 drawn one evening. Sharon was in the ICU in a coma. But she had been in there for a little while, and it looked like she was looking to fight to come back. And I kept thinking, oh, come on, we need you. I wasn't quite sure I was ready to let her go. But, I also knew that she was tired and so I had to just let it go. Well, that top 50 thing took place. My name was put on the board, and within an hour she passed. And I still get like chills, because I have no doubt in my mind she knew everything was going to be fine, because she just believed in our buddies so much that she wasn't going to leave this world until she knew things were going to be okay. And she didn't leave. She's just in a different state right
different
now.
Vehicle.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was watching Dr. Oz the other day, not the regular 4 o'clock Oprah Dr. Oz, but something he was doing. And he was explaining that he refuses to work an open heart surgery on somebody until he identifies a person that they love. And he was explaining that he had an elderly man come in, somewhat isolated, recent divorce, estranged from his kids, the whole bit, needed the surgery. And Dr. Oz basically said it would be useless, because if the heart doesn't have something to love, there's no point in me making it beat. And so he had to call the family in and say, I don't know what the family dynamics were that created the divide, but I need you as my co-doctors in the healing process, because when he comes out of surgery, he's not, if he goes into isolation, if he goes into, not being alone and trying to do this on his own, I can tell you what the morbidity rate is going to be. And he said, and it was interesting to watch how the family was like, you know what, we'll put aside our differences. We'll put aside the things that might have divided us to get him back up, to get him moving, and to begin a healing process physically and spiritually. So I do think it's interesting that your cancer buddies or chemo buddies for life sort of echoes that same idea of Dr. Oz, that if you try it alone, you will fail.
Well, I will say that Chemo Buddies for Life was actually inspired by and almost coaxed by our doctor, because I am one of the two original chemo buddies that this is modeled after. I had a buddy that I met in chemotherapy, because and I want to just make it very clear for everybody that Chemo Buddies for Life, it doesn't matter what tradition or what treatment you decide to go for when it comes to that word, the big C, that traditional adjunctive alternative, our stand is just don't do it alone. Well, okay, but I met my buddy in a chemotherapy room, and we traveled our cancer journey for 3 years together. And we had a very forward thinking practice that we were involved in. And it was our doctors and our nurses. It was our doctors and our nurses that helped compel us to go forward and research what it is that now I'm in, taking out to the world with my whole team. And that is because the doctors, like Dr. Oz, are starting to realize, and they're starting to have it in medical journals, and it's being verified that the heart and the mind and our brain and our heart actually have something to do with the physical body. Oh, go figure that. But the doctors are starting to realize it, and it's about time, because for so long, think about it, they had all these things segmented. You have the physical body, then you have the emotional health, and you have all of these different things, and it was like, oh no, these don't go together. No, we want to have them specialty units, and we're not even going to recognize that in this insurance. But no, they're realizing that they were wrong. And the doctors, like these forward-thinking doctors, are getting behind this. And that's what's so incredible about this movement. It's simple when you think about it. It's simple.
So I want to go over two things. I want to go over
Okay.
the mechanics of Chemo Buddies for Life, which
Okay.
I love the name because it's like for life. Like, are you partnered for life, or is it to help inspire life? And it can be either and or. And so I love that. Chemo Buddies for Life. Well done on the branding and marketing.
Thank you.
Which is always my passion.
Yeah.
So, but more about this idea that when you discover, and you're a cancer survivor.
I am. I'm one of 5 people in a direct line going my grandfather and my mother and my brother and I. My mom only had 2 kids, and then my daughter. All 5 of us have had it. My mother and my grandfather both passed from it. My brother and myself and my daughter are all survivors.
And the type of cancer?
All of them different. Mine was breast.
Okay. And so, having been through the journey of cancer, sort of that discovery, it's funny because Liz who was a couple weeks ago, Fun Friend Friday, she posted that she missed the call from the doctor telling her what the test results are and how quickly our mind goes to that place of everything is dark. So you get the call and say, hey, by the way, I need you to come in for further testing. Walk through that awareness. What is it that you as a cancer patient are thinking? Because there are some of us who have not directly experienced cancer, and so we're watching it through the eyes of a spouse, through a partner, through a parent, through a child, through a friend, through a coworker, and it's like, okay, what should I say? What shouldn't I say? Should we talk about it? Shouldn't we talk about it? What should we do next? When they get the first call, those first couple weeks.
And that is probably the most important time. And that's one of the reasons that our nonprofit is recognizing that period of time as significant, because if you call the Cancer Society or you call American Cancer Society or any of them, they don't recognize you until you've actually been formally diagnosed and you have that pathology report telling you what it is that you have. This is probably the most important time to be able to have support and be able to do your due diligence. In my case, I had already had that call come for so many others in my life when I finally got my call that I had been through the gauntlet, if you will, you know, and the most difficult one, there was actually two of them. It was my grandfather because he was more like my dad. He was my hero in life. And then my daughter, my 19-year-old daughter. And to be a mom, you know, that's a tough place to be. And when I got that call from my daughter, my brother had already had cancer, and my brother is a very, very smart attorney. And I called him immediately and I said, okay, this is what we're dealing with. And he said, don't go on the internet. Don't go on the internet, because my daughter had a very rare, very, very rare cancer. There's that rare category. Hers was really, really low percentage in the rare category. So that lets you know that there's not many of those. It's not one you hear. And so he was like, don't, I'll do the research. I'll do some research, but I don't want your mind to go crazy.
Ooh.
Right. And because you can start it depending on, and I'm a really relatively, you know, positive outlook kind of person.
That
And
you are.
yet, yeah, and yet he knew me well enough, because it was my daughter, that that was not going to be a good combo. And then I would start getting into Tamara mode, like, okay, let's get this done. Well, so when my call came, I actually, one of my platforms is that I talk very openly about the fact that I am a poster child on what not to do when it comes to breast cancer, because I had had other autoimmune issues and I had finally kind of got on top of them, and I'd gone and gotten off all my prescriptive drugs, and I went to the acupuncturist and I was doing all these things, and finally it's like, okay, I'm off of this big huge bag I was on every month. Now I'm going to go do what everybody else does. And I was already in my 50s and I had never had a mammogram because I was concentrating on other things. And here I come from a family of cancer. But we had, in my mind, it was like, oh, but we've never had breast cancer. Come on, you know? And when I went for my physical with my regular doctor, and he gave me like a stack of different tests and things. I went down in my car and I just started making my appointments. And the appointment, the X-rays and the mammogram place, they had an opening that next day. Someone had canceled, so they scooted me in. Well, I didn't think anything of it. I really didn't. I was working because I just was working my plan, all of the tests, and I had the follow-up appointment was scheduled like for 2 weeks. Well, I get the call saying, we need you to go have another test. I'm like, okay, no worries. Okay, let's go. And I didn't even think much of it and went and did it. Then I get the call, oh, we need to talk to you about that. And I'm like, okay, well, how about this? We have an appointment in 2 weeks. Let's just talk about all of them because I'm working the plan. And they're like, no, you don't get it. We need to talk to you. And that's when it was like, okay, I have to like face this. And I actually knew my ultrasound tech because she had been involved with my daughter's kind of discovery of cancer. And she couldn't tell me anything, but I'm kind of
The
very curious. And
told.
yeah, so anyway, the bottom line is I had a duck for a while because she said if it acts like a duck and squawks like a duck, most likely it's a duck. And so I kept going around saying, okay, I'm dealing with a duck. I need to get my ducks in a row and I need to figure out what my treatment plan is. And that's when I realized, being proactive, that that doesn't work very well in this world. And that's one of the reasons that when my doctor started having me do some research, because he kept saying, we want to bottle you two, my original buddy and I, because the frequency, they said, would change. We would drive onto the pavement and they said they knew we were there. They called us double trouble, or the party bus, because we'd get in there and we were like, okay, we're not doing this the traditional way, no way. But and think of Lucy and Ricky Ricardo mixed into one person.
In an infusion room, that would be a problem.
Yeah, and that was my chemo buddy. She was born in Cuba, and she was in the Freedom Flights, and so she didn't know English, and she actually watched I Love Lucy because she's just slightly older than I am, so same era, and she that's how she started learning English, was in that comedy. So the two of us would just be kind of disruptive, like, okay, we're not doing this the way that anybody else has done it, and they loved it. They loved it. They're like, we need more of this happening, because what what the other story that made us do what we ended up starting was that a year and a half after we both had started chemotherapy, we finally got to, traditionally they ring a bell. We didn't ring a bell. We were going to do it our way. We had a luau. We had big pink wigs. We brought coconut bras and hung them from the infusion poles. We had the nurses in on it, and they played Beach Boys music, and we brought a luau to celebrate, and we decorated the whole infusion room, and they stacked it, and people wore Hawaiian gear to come get cancer, get infusions.
So, and I think, and I love that, having been through infusion rooms and things, it's sort of a weird place. And I don't know if weird is the right word, because you're there because you want to receive treatment and hopefully a cure for your cancer. But you also know that it's a possibility that that may not be the outcome. So it's almost like standing on this tightrope of like, I'm here and I believe this can work, but I also know there's no guarantees, because they always sort of try and like mix the good with the bad in just the right amount, that they don't have to backpedal and say, I told you this was our first line of approach, or this was going to be our beginning attack. And some people that go through infusion then have to go on through different kinds of chemotherapy and radiation therapy and possible, invasive operation. So the infusion room is first, it's always freezing cold.
Yeah, it is.
But
Yeah.
it tends, for those who haven't been to one, it can be a very quiet, almost like I mean,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
avoiding of the eye contact, the nurses behind the desk, they're getting up, they check you, and but it's almost like that midnight flight when the stewardess is available, but everybody else is sleeping, and you just sort of are sitting there going, what should I do with the next hour of the flight? So I love the fact that you twisted it, but what I think may have been the reason for your success and your healing was that you saw this as a hopeful opportunity. You focused on the outcome as being finished, done, and positive versus part of a process. Now, when you start talking about chemo buddies, or you get that phone call that says, I just found out I have cancer, my daughter has cancer, what does chemo buddies do? Like, how does it go from being non-buddied to buddied? And then what is the commitment of the buddies, and why are they involved, and why is it important?
Great questions. I want to address the chemotherapy room, in that's why when I said that Chemo Buddies believes it doesn't matter what type of treatment, just don't do it alone. Well, we say that because you need to believe. You need to believe in every single fiber that what it is that you're choosing for yourself is going to work for you. It's a total belief system. Now, and this is what's interesting about life, is there's no guarantees in a day that anything is going to go well. You go out there in your day, you don't have a guarantee. We just have it looking at us a little bit more in the face. And so you look at life a little differently when you are dealing with cancer. Now, Chemo Buddies for Life, we are still relatively new, but so needed. And this is an inspired program. I will tell you that there's no way that anybody that's dealing with this doesn't know how big this is going to be. It's becoming big already. It is going to be the biggest out there, and the name will be even more prevalent than Make-A-Wish. And I can say that because Frank Shankwitz is on my advisory board. I have one of the original architects of the Americans with Disabilities Act on my advisory board. I've got amazing people that have joined us, And because of the fact that they see that this is kind of a no-brainer, it needs to happen. All right, so how have we, where it's going is going to be slightly different to where it is right now. Currently, we had to just start somewhere and say, okay, this is what we where we're going. Let's start. So 2 years ago, it's been 2 years that my original buddy, she's slightly older than I am, and she has some other associating medical things. She ended up walking because this became a full-time program. And it was a matter of, okay, we know this will work. We just have to figure out how to put it together. And where it will go is, think of like a matching site, a dating matching site.
Okay.
Comes to cancer, and you have a way to go in and have a patient buddy, or you have a way to go in and have a support buddy. And they're in two separate areas. They don't cross pollinate. And then you have a community area. Well, that is going to be beefy, and that is, and we're not settling. I actually tried to build it. Yeah, right. I burnt it, crashed it a couple times, and realized that, yeah, it was very hilarious. But you just have to go out there. I'm running a very different nonprofit than possibly ever has been created, because I didn't know that it couldn't be done. And that's why I think I was chosen. It was like, I have no idea, but we'll figure it out, how to do it. I didn't even have a Facebook page. So what we're doing, except for to just see my grandkids' pictures, but it wasn't active. But what we are doing is, through social media is where we started. And we just put it out there and they started coming. And my professional experience is that I was a headhunter recruiter for 18 years. And so I put people together with companies. I match people. So it was like natural. Okay, we'll just start matching people. So we would start manually matching buddies. And we also, when I was telling you about our ambassador in the beginning, Sharon, she became like the main buddy. I went out, we would talk nearly daily. And the way we had it segmented in the beginning was that I would go out and be the face of Chemo Buddies and start building the community out on the outside. And then she would work it from the inside. And so, like, if someone came to me, we would then pass over to her. And now we have a team of ambassadors that are helping with the buddies, and so that they've kind of become a buddy, or we're pairing them off. Eventually will be, that piece of it will become automated, and then we will always have intake. And right now we've been doing a lot of advocacy work for our buddies, and some amazing things are happening.
So there's a program that I serve with, and it's built around foster care. And they realized that there weren't enough foster families because it wasn't that they didn't have the heart, they just didn't have the support of running an extra kid back and forth to a doctor's, or, needing a nighttime babysitter and things like that. And so now it's, for every foster family, we build a support team around that's tiered down based. And so if you need something, you call that team leader, and then that team leader has 10 people. So I love the idea of what you're creating. I want to go back one. If I wanted to be a buddy, do I have to have survived cancer?
No, no. We have buddies for both sides. You need we're building a what we're calling healing through connections within the buddies network. We actually have buddies that are not even affected by cancer, but they're affected by other life-changing health events. But we had to bite off at one time, because my background is very diverse, and so I really have a soft point for a lot of different areas that you could need a buddy for. But we had to start somewhere, and Chemo Buddies for Life is where that was, and so we put our flag in. So right now, what we are supporting very actively are those people that currently are facing cancer. They've just possibly, and we've got a lot, they're coming daily. And then we have those people that love and support them. In fact, within our buddies, some of the buddies that have now passed, their family members, like you were talking about the support people, their family members are buddies and we support them. And that's one of the things, because that we watch everything through humor, hope, and heart. And the heart piece of it is that we are there unconditionally loving those people that are our buddies. We do not discriminate at all. Cancer doesn't. We don't either. We don't care what country you're from, what language you speak, what are your religious views, what are your anything about it. If you need a buddy, then we want you to be our buddy. As long as you're not going to hurt our community, you're accepted in. And so we have quite a few that even the medical community, it's amazing how many people that are serving get close to someone, and then that hurts. And if they need a buddy, if they need to work through something, then we want them to be there. We want to give them support. And many times they're serving someone else, and that's how they're getting their support.
And that's where I want to make sure everybody heard. So we have the primary patient. We may have a chemo buddy, but then there's this extra layer of the support for the buddy. And that's where Caring for the Caretaker, which is a book I read quite a while ago, is so vital. Is when you have maybe that your wife is dealing with breast cancer and you're the primary caregiver to her, and you're going to the doctor's appointments, you're managing the medical bills and medical calls and medical appointments, and then still trying to maintain normal life and intimacy. And you're both a caregiver and a spouse, you're a caregiver and a partner, you're a caregiver and a parent, like you're running 6 roles. Having somebody come alongside of you that says, I'm not here for the primary patient, I'm here for you. What do you need?
Right.
Is so critical. And I've had an experience where somebody showed up at the door and said, here, I've just made this huge plate of lasagna, and there's this, and it should feed you for 3 days. We'll be back. Like, we realize you may eat the same meal for 3 days, but I bet in your life right now, the fact that it's a meal and not just something in the micro, like, so I love the idea that you've recognized that the caregiver needs care.
Yeah, it's huge. And in fact, there's some caretaker advocacy groups that will tell you that because of the stress on the caretaker, sometimes the caretaker ends up becoming the patient and can even die before the patient does if they don't take care of themselves. And yeah, and the thing here too to understand about a chemotherapy room, and that's the traditional, and again, it doesn't matter what treatment, but we're going to look at that one. You have 2 chairs in a chemotherapy room, right? You've been in an infusion room. You have the patient chair, which usually is a reclining chair, and then you have the stationary chair that is not so comfortable, but that's for the support person, right? Because you have to have a driver or someone there. Well, you're never going to completely understand each other, what's happening inside of your whole body and your heart and your mind from those 2 different chairs. And so many families are splitting apart. The stress can be overwhelmingly, if you come to cancer with whatever you come with, life, and life continues even when you're going through cancer. Things happen and you think, oh yeah, everything should go on hold. No, I'm sorry, it doesn't. That's not the way it works. So life keeps showing up, and so you're trying to deal with the normal stuff, and then you've got this big huge issue. And many times, depending on what that personality is for the support person, a lot of fix it, I'm going to fix it kind of attitude. Okay, I'm going to take care of this. And when they can't fix it, then they go ballistic because, yeah, well, there you go. You understand. And so to be able to have something as simple as someone that will get it, like, okay, I have a fix it buddy. I have a support buddy that I can talk to and say, okay, is it normal to feel this way? Because I have been in that support role. I was actually going through my own treatment when we found out that my mother, who was in my home, and this was her room, she ended up being diagnosed with multiple myeloma, one of the most painful of the cancers, and she ended up passing. She also had superbugs, and I'm going through treatment, and I end up having to be one of the primary caretakers. My daughter, I move her back, and she might have been reoccurring at the time too, and she ends up being the other and so we're having to use gloves because that was the only way that our doctors would even let us, and we are both depleted ourselves, and yet she was 69 pounds. She couldn't get out of the hospital bed. She needed someone to take care of her. And so who was it? And I was sitting in the chair at night because I wanted my daughter to be able to sleep because she had two small children living in the house. And that is a tough dynamic. And here it is. I I we hadn't started chemo buddies by then, but I knew enough because we had been through so many cancer drills in our house, in our family, and yet each one ends up presenting different things. And so I have been in that literal chair as a support person, and I remember someone dear to me calling and saying, you need a couple of hours off. And I was like, oh no, I need to be here because of la 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 la. Well, that was the best call that could have ever come during that time, because what it did was it also, as we were really starting to dive into what was chemo buddies going to be all about, that piece of it, I started doing a lot of research, asking the psychologists at our clinic and some of the others that I got on the phone with, and that's when I realized, and I was told, that this piece is being overlooked and it needs to be addressed. And that's why we even included the medical community, because we're like, we're not going to isolate anybody from, if they're feeling isolated and alone, we want them to be a
And I
buddy.
think, and I think that's an important part. And this may sound harsh, but often the support person, the buddy, says is there's this part in their head where they're saying, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah. Oh,
Like, I'm
yeah.
okay with being your partner, I'm okay with being your spouse, I'm okay with being your parent or whatever, but I didn't I didn't sign up to be this.
Right.
And
Right.
and so you get stuck in this position, and out of love, out of duty, out of responsibility, out of respect, you take on that role. And so now it's like, you know what, I didn't sign up for that, but I'm here for you because that's who I am and that's who I want to be in our relationship. But I haven't been trained, coached.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
nobody goes through pre-cancer caregiver trainer. And so
Right.
you're trying to figure out your role as
Mm-hmm.
this new person in their life, and still trying to figure out your old role as the spouse, the parent, the coworker, the whatever. And you're doing it in a vacuum because God forbid you would turn to your friends on the and go, you know what, I didn't sign up for this shit. I'm not in the mood to be her cancer partner today. I'm not like, because they would look at you and think, what an uncaring, uncompassionate, unloving husband you are, when in reality it's like, no, I'm not the person that can manage this today. I need to be the dad and the husband, not
Right.
the driver and the infusion check. And yet, if they said that out loud, like, I don't want to be here today. Honey, I do
Right.
not want to be sitting next to you in
Right.
this infusion room today. I
Mm-hmm.
really don't want to be here. People would so heavily judge that that goes silent. And so when the hand for help comes out, they're like, no, no, I got it. Because if I accept the fact that you'll go instead of me, then that makes me look like a bad spouse or a bad husband or a bad parent. When in reality, what it is you taking time to breathe
Right.
and
Right.
process and fill your cup and reconnect. And so I often tell people that are in that caretaking, caregiving role, it's like you need to almost have a name tag that when you put it on, you separate from being the parent, the spouse, and when you take it off, you're allowed to going back to only being that one thing that you
Right.
signed up for with them, because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's physically, it's emotionally, it's
Mm-hmm.
spiritually exhausting. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't intentionally go out and build a network or have a network show up at your door, you'll what comes after the cancer is often divorce and separation and dysfunction.
Right, right. Very true. And let me just even add a little bit to what you just shared. That person that is having that conflicted, emotional state and everything, hats off to that person because most of them don't stay. There is an epidemic, and this is one of the reasons that Chemo Buddies for Life, when we get our website really built, we will have a community area, and we are gonna be a hub. Think of a hub for all the different resources to come together because again, one of my advisors was one of the chief architects for the Americans with Disabilities Act. We didn't have a chair at that table because we died back then. Now we are the new normals, and so there's a lot of things that were not built into that act that we actually need. Well, one of the things that in particular breast cancer, because and this is a whole different discussion, but a lot of people decide or say, not everybody, but some say where you get your cancer might be because of other associating factors, right? Okay, so breast cancer, they say that could have something to do with emotion and variety of things like that. Well, there is an epidemic that most times it's women. Men do get breast cancer, but most times it's women. And many times that insurance that's going to get that person through to the other side is held by the partner, the
Ooh,
husband. Yes, this is the epidemic, and people don't realize this, and we need to get this out there. And when we get all of our people together, we will be going and educating our lawmakers because what is happening is that many times you have cancer, and then they're like, okay, we were already having problems. I can't, I'm not going to do the today I'm this and today I'm not. That's too generous. I'm out of here. And so you have cancer paperwork, and then I want a divorce paperwork. Well, what happens with that is depending how long the divorce proceedings take place, if they don't know to get a stay, and it's not going to be immediate, but if that is person, and most of the time they're like a deer in a headlight, they're going through treatment or they just heard and their whole world is caving in, and if they don't know to get a stay on their insurance, they are insurance-less. That throws them into the community pot. Then they have to stop their private treatment. They have to start all over with diagnosis, treatment plan. They may be 5 in and they would have only needed one more round to get to that next step, but they have to stop because there's no more insurance and it's very costly.
I mean, when I say I wouldn't think of that, I didn't think of that most there is a large population that one spouse carries the insurance for the family,
Mm-hmm.
and that if that is the non-cancer spouse, you're dependent on them at a whole different level now. It's like, not
Yes.
only do I need you to be my caretaker and my chemo buddy and my spouse, but I
Right.
need you to stay employed so that we don't lose the insurance, so that midway through my treatment, my healing, we don't become uninsured.
Right,
And
right.
even if we
And
become uninsured, do we have the funds to cover the cost of carrying the insurance? Or so like
that's a
that's
whole
a
nother, yeah.
really complex layer.
Right, right. So that's why we keep it simple. However, that's why I wanted to let you know that the scenario you were sharing about the caretaker and the confliction that takes place, because I'm really a simple person. When it comes down to it, we need to keep life simple. There's too many things going out there that we can get ourselves all in knots over. And the simplicity of, okay, there's issues. There's always going to be issues in life. There's no way of getting through your day without them. It's a matter of where we're coming from. So we go back to humor, hope, and heart. When you have already issues in a group or family unit, and that patient is trying to survive. It's incredible that cancer patients don't even have as many laws on the book as some animals do when it comes to their being able to have the right to live in certain scenarios. And so what we now realize, and this is where we will at some point when we have all of us together, because with the ADA it started with one nonprofit, and then all together they had 800 nonprofits that were able to finally hash it out and go to and get it passed. And so what we need is for our lawmakers to understand that it doesn't have to be difficult. If there's a divorce taking place, let it happen. It's just, don't kill the spouse. That, don't take away that insurance until that make it a law in the book that you don't even have to ask for a stay, that you know that you can at least get your life-saving treatment completed, and then the insurance can go away.
I mean, it seems so simple. Like, okay, you can file for a divorce, but the execution of the insurance shouldn't occur for a period of time agreed upon. And I guess because of my travels and that's why I think everybody having some basic medical health care guaranteed by government. I know there's complaints. I'm not getting into that, but knowing that at worst, there is a fallback place for those that are in that position, where right now, as you're saying, they have to go through the whole thing starting from scratch, and that's 6 months to a year of process. So as we pull it into the station, as
Right.
they say, and I told everybody we were going to focus on the caregiver, and it was funny because I had a friend that had cancer. I called you, or I texted you, or called you, and I said, by the way, they're in the middle of their treatment, they're in the middle of their diagnosis. I hand it off to you because when I say I am the worst bedside manner, I'm like, I am the worst. I like I literally one time was sitting with somebody that had a chest tube in, and I went out to the nurse and complained that it was too loud for me to focus on reading my book. Like, is there anything you can do? Because if you've ever been around one of those, they bubble like a water fountain in the middle of the hall. And she just looked at me like, so would you like us to disconnect it so your friend like can't, like, dude, this isn't. I thought, well, I was just asking.
Right.
So I don't do well sitting bedside. I am the guy that will fix it, research it, meet with the
Mm-hmm.
doctors, get the team
Mm-hmm.
online. But if I have to sit there quietly for an hour or 2 hours and just like smile, I lose my mind. So anybody needs me, that I've identified my role, stay with it.
Okay.
Don't ask me to go outside my comfort zone on that one. It'll just result in me pulling the plug because the beeping is driving me crazy.
Right. Right.
So thank you for taking care of my friend. But so I get a call today from my spouse, my coworker, my kids, my parents. They say,
Yeah.
you know what? I just got a call from the doctor. It looks like I might have cancer. Talk to that first level support person. What are like the 4 or 5 things that you would say, starting, like, do
Yeah.
this and don't do this, like the top 5? You just got the call that somebody has cancer thing.
What I would suggest is this: is simple things like a journal. A journal is critical, especially as being a support person, because you need to be feeling yourself. You need to be writing these things down, but also you need to in the end, you really need to keep track of what are the dates of that you're taking this person for this. When did this happen? Because one of the frustrations as the caretaker is when the doctors, especially if you have different doctors involved, they're going to look at you and they're going to say, when was the last time this happened? And then you get frustrated when you can't give that answer. So keep it simple. Find something that you can carry with you, write down the date, write down what it was, and then how did you feel about it? Because you need to stay in touch with your own feelings. Another thing, even if it's a few minutes in the day, take time to walk around the room, take time to exercise. You need to be moving. Too many times that caretaker ends up sitting in that chair, or going here and doing that, and they forget to take care of themselves, and so then they start having aches and pains and problems, and people will say, well, I can't. Well, yeah, you can. You can walk around the room, you can walk out in the hall. If you're at the hospital, take a moment and do some laps, whatever that may be. Remember something as simple as hydrating. Too many of them don't, because then I'll have to go, I'll have to go away, and they're worried about even going to the bathroom. It's like, you can't let your body shut down because of the fact that you're trying to help someone else. These are simple things, but yet they're things that many times, for some reason, we think, oh yeah, I can do without right now. And another important thing is, remember that you need fuel yourself. You need to take healthy snacks if you're going and you're going to be taking care of that person in that chair. You think about that person in the chair, but you're not always thinking about yourself. So have a support bag for your patient, but have a support bag for yourself, a support bag for the support person, because you're equally as important. And then another thing too is have a buddy. Have a buddy. Have someone that you can talk to and say, is it normal for me to be so frustrated that I have to sit there and listen to this bubbly machine when I want to have it quiet so I can read? It's like, yes, it is. And you're not going crazy. And you have every right to feel that right way, because that validation oftentimes, because we start playing these games in our head, like, oh, and I want to address the quietness of the infusion room. Who said it has to be quiet? And humor. Have you had your daily dose of laughter lately? Don't forget to laugh, both the support person and the patient. And the best thing you can do is laugh together. It's simple. Yet it's amazing how just those simple things can make a lifetime of difference.
Well, and I love the journal because both the keeping track of the events, but also keeping
Yeah.
track of you in that event gives you a place to do it. Yes, on the physical, you don't think about it, but you're driving and you're in air conditioning and you're all these environments that you're not used to.
Mm-hmm.
And dehydration is like, can cause a symptom of depression.
Right?
I love, so take physical care of yourself. Commit to having a 30-minute mean
Mm-hmm.
time where you drink the water, eat the right foods,
Mm-hmm.
and go for a walk. I love having my own support bag, like that. It because I'm very much about having symbols, and so when I'm with my support bag, I know what my role is, and when I'm not, I know what my other
Mm-hmm.
role is. And I will so echo having that person or persons that you can go to. And I always say, let them know that I need you to be judgment free. I
Yes.
am in the
Yes.
process of figuring something out. And just because I say it doesn't need a response. I'm just trying to hear it out loud in a way that I can think about it. And so if I come to you and say, I'm really frustrated, I'm sick of being in
Mm-hmm.
the car for 3 hours and then the infusion, don't try and fix it. Just let me say it in a judgment-free zone. As you know, I have a kid with a disability, and sometimes I'll say something and people go like, you must be a wicked looking dad. I'm like, do you know what it's like to walk through a room and not understand your child because of her speech issue? And she's 8 years old and you're trying, like, it's not that I don't love her. I just, like, some days you just like vibrate and you
Right.
need a place to scream. And so having that
Right.
that buddy where you can do it. And I would
Mm-hmm.
also say, to add to your list, that I will accept help graciously
Yes.
and without
Yes.
judgment. That just if
Mm-hmm.
somebody's like, you want me to come and vacuum your floors, it doesn't
Right.
mean that they think your house is dirty. They're just trying to use the skill that they have in a way that they think would support you. And
Right. Right.
anybody
And
can come and vacuum my floors anytime, by the way. Um, so I love that idea that we focused on remembering the support person needs support. It's not
right.
something that they signed up for. If they
Yeah.
did, they would be in medical school or something equivalent.
Right.
And I love that your organization focuses on them as much as it does on the cancer patient.
Right, right. And one thing you had mentioned earlier, and as we button this up and come into the train tracks and everything, I want to say that a lot of people don't know what to say to either the patient or the support person. They just don't, and you don't need to know what to say. It's just like you said, if they want to serve, if they want to just say, "Hey, I don't know what to say, but I'm here for you." That is enough, because the just don't, if you feel compelled, you have someone that you know that is facing this, and you feel your heart is going out and you feel compelled, don't walk away from that feeling, because too many people don't know what to say, and they feel awkward, and so they don't say anything at all. And that, in the end, sometimes can be the thing that's going to, later in life say, I really should have, I could have, and I didn't. And so don't make it more difficult than it needs to be. Just say you're thinking of them.
Yeah, and I will say, as somebody that is sort of that second layer support person, or the support to the supporter, often
Right.
we'll hear the news and we'll say, if there's anything you need, just call me. And we go off waiting for the call, and the support person is like, no, I've got this, I'm fine, I'm good.
Right.
But 2 or 3 weeks later, they're like, man, I could really use somebody, and I know Tamara offered, but that was like 3 weeks ago, and I feel kind of bad. So as the support to the support person, keep checking in, like, hey,
Yes. Yeah.
you got a buy one get one free coupon, or you got me in your corner, you got a free babysitting coupon still to use. Remind them over and over
Yes.
and over that you're there, because we all have that tendency when somebody says you need help to be like, no, I got this, we're strong and independent. And it's hard to come back later and say, I need your help. So help them have always access by sending a text, sending an email, sending a phone call, dropping a note in their mailbox as you pass by it with the dogs, and say, by the way, I'm still here if you need me. By the way,
Right.
I still want to make you dinner. By the way, and it's that
Mm-hmm.
continual knowledge that you have somebody on the edge that gives you strength. You may never tap into it, but just knowing it didn't go away is big.
Right. I want to say one last thing in regards to all
You
of that. Yeah, I know, last and then another
no,
one,
no,
but
no.
but
I love you.
but
Follow.
but
Please
this is
go.
important, because you know what, it don't be afraid as the caretaker. You need to just realize that all bets are off with what it was like before, and you need to feel like, okay, the game has changed a bit. This is only temporary. This doesn't define us, but this is the moment. And do not let that fear get in. Fear is, just get that out of the way, and don't even think about it twice. If someone said it 5 months ago, you call them, because they want to serve. People want to help. And that's the thing that I really want to stress for both chairs. Don't ever think that people don't want to support you. If you don't hear from them, that doesn't mean that they don't want to support you. Many times it's just they don't know how. And so you're giving them an opportunity to love. You're giving them a gift to serve you. And that's the way that you need to really start looking at it, because that there is so much amazing energy that happens through service. So let people serve you, and don't think that you're imposing on them. You're imposing on them to not let them serve you. So that's where I want to end this. Is it is so
And it's
important
and
to
it's
give
so
that
true.
gift.
When we allow others to serve, we're actually serving them
Yes.
by allowing them to move into a new place, move into a new experience, move into an
Right.
opportunity that they have been waiting for, but nobody has given them. So yeah, I remember once I was like, no problem, I'll just buy the entire thing, and somebody's like, no, yes, just because you can afford it doesn't mean you need to. We want others to have the joy of serving, the joy of
Right.
being a part of it, and you're not serving them if you deny them. So
Right.
yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we serve others best by allowing them to serve us sometimes.
Exactly. And that's where I let my chemo buddies for life know about the service heroes, that we all have a service hero inside of us, and that they are serving when they're laying there in the bed and they're not feeling good and someone comes in and serves them. I let them know you are serving them back by graciously accepting what it is, the love that they're giving them.
I see. This is why you're my 365 service hero.
Oh,
You create opportunities for those serving to continue to, and you recognize and celebrate and support them in their service, and saving lives at the same time. And
thank you.
you truly are, with Chemo Buddies and Chemo Buddies for Life, and then the supporting of the service, the buddies. And I just thank you for being who you are.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
know there's a lot behind the scenes and struggles and frustrations and battles that you face, but when you are called into action, you always show up with an attitude of joy and celebration and service. And I know that's difficult. I know it's sometimes a challenge to put it all on and make it all work, but you continually to do it over and over and over at the highest level. And what I love also is that you invite people to share in it. So congratulations for being my service hero today.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I really do. I don't take that lightly. Because I think the world of you. I'm so glad that we've become friends, because I started watching your show and I'm like, I just really adore what you're all about. And so it's like, okay, I need to recognize you. And you were so gracious in that.
I love
And you actually, I will say you were one of the first people that started watching my little show as I'm trying to, technology was being very difficult with me in the beginning, but you were always, okay, don't give up. You're good. You're good. And so I appreciate that. You've been so supportive.
And I will continue, because what you're doing is so significant and so important. People, and I'm going to have you drop it in later, and I'll make sure it gets in the comments. But if you want to connect to Tamara and Service Buddies and Service Buddy Heroes, please do. There's probably a place where you can serve her and the organization, and know that it's one of those organizations that's built on heart, but sometimes needs dollars to get it done. But it really is about people, helping people get through the journey of cancer, and then helping those who care for them get through whole as well. And so I can't think of a better organization to be a part of.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I have to just brag about my volunteers and my ambassadors and just everybody. We have the most amazing, loving, service-oriented type of individuals, and we want more of them. So anybody, because the bottom line is that we together can change the way cancer is done, because the rude truth of it is that 1 in every 2 men and 1 in every 3 women will hear those words, and then we support the person that loves and supports them. So that's basically everyone throughout the world. That's why I can safely say that at some point that people will say, okay, you've heard those 3 words, now do you have your buddy?
Yes. So we build based on hope, heart, and humor.
Humor, hope, and heart. Yeah, humor, hope, and heart. That's
humor comes first.
Yes, that's ever so important. And so that's why anybody that goes into an infusion room that's quiet, go have some fun, create some ruckus.
We need stand-up comedians doing shows in infusion rooms, because I tell you, that place is just that is not.
I will tell you that we're going to have a comedy club in our community area. It's that important. We will have a comedy club. We're shaking things up. Nothing traditional here.
I love it. Well, thank you for being my guest on Fun Friend Friday. Everybody, I will download this and post it to the YouTube channel. I have to pause. Somehow that word doesn't work for me. YouTube channel later today, so you can make sure. In the meantime, share it out. There's somebody that's either working, that has cancer, or that is a spouse or partner or caregiver of somebody with cancer. And just to know they're not alone, to know that there's an organization like Chemo Buddies for Life helping them could be what they need today. And so serve others by serving this up to them, so to speak. And I will see everybody again on Monday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern for Success Life Live. If you need me in the meantime, feel free to connect. I'll talk to you all later. And thank you again, my friend. You have an awesome and amazing day. You are a success. You
Well,
are
thank
a
you.
success.
So
Thank
are
you.
you. See you later.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.